Good afternoon. Hello, everybody.
Good evening, Pastor.
I am glad to have you. I'm assuming someone is verifying that we're live.
Yes.
Um, and we just want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon as we begin our next discussion. Today, I have an interesting discussion on um, burnout and confusion. I think that's going to be a good discussion that we can have today. Anthony, can you do me a favor and plug my laptop in? My cable should be, cord should be in my computer bag here. And you all have a little patience with me. My voice still ain't got back quite right since this past week. I noticed it this morning when I was in prayer. I said, "Boy, I'm still hoarse. I haven't done anything all week, but we'll get through it. I have a great word to share this Sunday." And so we do. Thank you all for joining us and being patient with me. So let's talk about this idea of burnt out and to anyone that's watching, any of you. Let's talk about burnout and confusion. As I reflect upon many challenges of the workplace and numerous obstacles that clutter the path of success, I find that none are more dangerous than confusion. Confusion is one of the enemy's most subtle devices and tricks. And when we are confused or when there's a lot of confusion, we tend to lose focus. We miscommunicate with one another. We duplicate responsibilities, and things go undone. Confusion is one of the factors to burnt out. I want to talk a little bit about both confusion and burnt out, and I think that they're cousins of one another. Um, but I wanted to just talk about that. Confusion often originates with lack of communication. So one of the things that I've learned, even as a CEO, I'll share things, and I've learned how to get people to start repeating it. Because I will think that I'm telling them one thing, and they leave with another thing, and it's just confusion. I mean, and especially in an organization our size, church our size, so many moving parts, we have a lot of confusion. And some of y'all probably noticed the frustration that gets on my face when we have it, because I know that I've put a lot of things in place so that we shouldn't have the confusion, but yet and still it happens. And it mostly happens because of a lack of communication. Somebody didn't tell somebody I'm gonna be out of town. Somebody didn't show somebody how to do this. I thought you was doing it. And so instead of focusing on our primary task, then we become distracted, disturbed, derailed from our primary mission. And perhaps some of you all have seen me get distracted and derailed when I'm up preaching. And it's because there was confusion. It happens to us all. And instead of me focusing on my primary mission, which is to preach the gospel, I'm focused on the confusion. I'm focused on what is out of place or what is wrong. And so one of our goals is how do we get our assignment done with minimal confusion? How do we get our work done and limit the confusion? When we become confused, overworked, or frustrated by feelings of futility, we eventually get caught up into burnout. And this is where burnout comes from. So it starts usually with just getting frustrated about the job, getting frustrated about the confusion, getting frustrated about the back and forth. Ultimately, we overextend ourselves, and before you know it, you're burnt out. Talented men and women quit their jobs due to stress or become sidelined with injury because of confusion and burnout. While they clearly have the talent, the capability, and the calling to perform the jobs with excellence, it's just apparent that they themselves have become burnt out as a result of the confusion and the overtasking of themselves. You can literally work yourself to death. You can literally, and even if it's not physical death, it's you worked yourself out of that job. You become burnt out as a result of that job. And so what you've literally done is you've worked yourself to death. If you allow the confusion and the frustration and aggravation to get to you, you become burnt out. It's a slow burn that ultimately gets to you, and you just can't take it anymore. So let's take a few minutes and talk about those of you that have experienced confusion and burnt out, being burnt out on jobs or ministries or churches. This happens a lot in church, by the way, especially to people who love to work. They just get burnt out. And it usually happens because of confusion. So what experiences do you all have concerning being burnt out? Yes, Evan.
Mine was, those who don't know, my father's a pastor. And we worked in the church, and he thought that we should work in the church, like really we did everything but preach, his kids.
Okay.
And so what happened was when the pastor said everybody had their committee, everybody was in charge of something, but it seemed like if they dropped the ball, it fell back on us. And when you're 15 and grown-ups are coming to you saying, hey, pastor anniversary coming up and this happened, we're looking like, what? I'm trying to be in high school, I'm trying to do what I need to do. I was burnt out before I was 18. I was done with church. And so I said, I'm not going to do, I said, when I leave, I ain't doing nothing. Well, the next church I went to, I automatically jumped into it, was active again. And then I was like, I'm not doing this again. Because, when you're doing something, people tend to pile more on you. And so that's what happened to me. And yes, that is a reason why I don't do a lot of stuff in church now. Because I have a fear of taking on too much and allowing myself to be burnt out.
Well, I'm glad you're at this class, so we're going to get you busy and working in church. So one of the keys, so there's two issues, and so she's the classic example, and I would guarantee you that out of the hundreds of people that come to our church, there's any number of them that has Ebony's story. They're just burnt out. They have worked themselves to death. That they literally just, I don't want to do this no more. I'm tired of church folk, I'm tired of this, I'm tired of that, so on and so forth. So now the question is, how can we work and not get burnt out? How do we avoid the burnout? What is it that we can do? Because work's got to get done now. And here's what we don't want. We don't want to just have a revolving door of workers all the time. Work them to death till they die. All right, that horse dead. Go get me a new horse. Just work the horse to death. All right, that horse dead. Go get me a new horse. And sometimes in ministries, that is what happens. You see this huge turnover all the time with the workers. I mean, that's one thing that I do kind of like about Victoria's phrase is we get turnover, but not huge turnover. If y'all come in here and every 2 years I got a new first assistant. Okay, y'all ain't working with it. Well, who the assistant now? That says that, and it could be some ethical issues when stuff like that happens too. But it also could speak to the fact that you're killing your people. You're burning them out. And so one of the things to help to avoid burnout is learn how to cut back on the confusion, because that frustrates you. So if there's one thing that creates burnout, it's just frustration. We blame each other, we fight with each other, we get frustrated with each other, we're hot with each other. We're supposed to be enjoying the church, but everybody running around. Nobody's getting the word. Why? Because of confusion. We're confused about the assignments, the tasks, or what's supposed to get done, when it's supposed to get done. And so that confusion itself is what is creating emotional or mental burnout. And you just get tired of it. You get tired of the same old thing. And so you may be gifted for the assignment. You may be talented. And I kind of knew that Ebony was a preacher's kid, but then I didn't know. Because she's effectively become that nice church member, bring her children to church, sit there nice. She's a good member. She really is. When the husband's in town, they come with the family. I mean, just the perfect couple. They come in with the two girls. Kids, and they sit there and listen to me preach the whole sermon. Ask for a nice little offering, they give me a nice little offering, and she's just settled in. But I wouldn't have known that she was a church girl. Now, anybody that's a church girl, y'all know what I'm talking about. We swept the floor, mopped the floor, sung in the choir, ushered the folk in, got the cloth and put on them when they fell out, helped pick them back up. Y'all not working with me. And that can lead to burnout, especially when there's a lot of confusion around it. One of the keys is learning how to be an effective multitasker. But you got to learn how to do it right. Because sometimes what multitaskers do is, and I said multitasker, I meant to say delegator. We are multitaskers when we should be delegators. Multitaskers just do a million different things. And because there's a million different things that need to be done. Now, everything that Ebony said was true, and everything that she said needed to get done. Pastor needed it done. We need to get the pastor's anniversary. We need to get this. We need to do that. All of that stuff needed to be done. And so talented people tend to become multitaskers. We'll just do it all. We'll just work in every area, in every capacity. And I got some people in the church that do that for a living. I mean, I just, I see them doing everything. They are professional multitaskers. The challenge is that you never really focus on any one thing. And so what you have to do, and I'm getting ready to get into this next point, but I want to stay right here on this slow burn for a minute. You have to learn limitations and boundaries. And so what we don't want to happen is we don't want you to die and just give up altogether. We want you to establish limits. And I'll come back to limits later. So let me just talk a little bit more about being burnt out. So number one, confusion burns us out. Y'all got that? So if there's one thing that burns us out, it is confusion. By the way, if there's anybody that's got questions and watching, go ahead and send your questions, what is it called? Chat. And somebody will get me the question. So we want you all to participate, those that are watching. We do want you all to participate in the discussion. We've got to deal with effectively with confusion, which really is amounting to making sure you have clear conversation. But the other thing is not doing too much. We have to learn limitations, which gets me to this point. So I'm going to call this point setting speed limits. Yes.
How do you, well, I heard you say become a delegator. So how do you, when you have a job to do and there's nobody to delegate,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a whole bunch of things that have to be done, and it's just only you. So if there's nobody to delegate to, it's almost like you have to do that multitasking and do all of those tasks.
So what do you do, class, when there's no one to delegate to? What do you do if there's no one to delegate to and there's multiple things that need to be done? Yes.
One thing I came across is you have to prioritize things on two different quadrants where you got urgent and unurgent and important and unimportant. You need to take care of the urgent and important thing first, and then the urgent, well, basically the unimportant and urgent things never get done. Just leave them off, they'll figure themselves out.
Until they become urgent.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the way.
So one key is prioritize. So in other words, you got 50 million things to do. All of them don't got to get done right now. All of them do not have to be done today. So prioritize. That's one good point. What's another?
Recruit. Find some people to help you. And
Absolutely. And that was just said. That was the point that came to my mind. Go find somebody. I mean, one of the truth of the matter is that Victorious Praise has hundreds of members now, but we didn't always have hundreds of members. The work that we do still needs to get done, so we had to go and get more people. When you don't have anybody to delegate to and you have an assignment, it's easy for you to just say, I'll do it myself. But we've got to learn how to resist that and start working on these other assignments, prioritization and recruiting. I tell all my leaders, I said, the reason why I'm teaching leadership, because leadership is the ability to get people to follow you. You need people to follow you so that you can delegate. You need people to follow you so you can give assignments. If you can't get nobody to follow you, then you'll end up having to do it all yourself. And so we've got to learn leadership qualities. That's why I require every leader at Victorious Praise to go through leadership development and training. Because if they don't, what are they going to do? There's going to be mass confusion, and they're going to burn out. They're going to be mass confusion, and they're going to burn out because they're going to try to do it all themselves. They're going to get frustrated, and they're just going to have that slow burn until they kick over and die. Ebony, you had your hand raised.
What if you do have people to help, but you know that they're not going to do it right or going to have to do it?
Yeah, that is, and that is a challenge. I think my message last Sunday and this Sunday coming up are going to be good because who people are doesn't mean that has to always be who they are. One of the, going back to the whole training thing, Ebony, even though I get frustrated with exactly how you just described it, they're not stepping up to the plate, they could do more, they're not faithful, I don't allow the frustration to cause me to give up on trying. So I constantly am trying different ways to train, trying different ways to motivate, trying different ways to educate. When people don't measure up, our job is to make sure that we help them. Now, some people never will, but that don't mean that everybody never will. I mean, I got people right now in the church that are active, but they weren't active 2 years ago. You follow what I'm saying? I just kept working with it until I got them where I needed them to be. And that's one of the keys through patience, training, and long suffering. And now ultimately, you're right. We can't wait forever. But trying to find that right balance of being patient with people, and I think Sunday's message will be really interesting because I'm going to talk about how your anointing needs to expand so that you can have a deeper capacity to deal with people. Like people create your anointing, but then your anointing needs to expand so you can continue to deal with people. Your capacity for dealing with people has to expand. Otherwise, you be like, oh, you ain't working out, you fired. And you can't do that. Oh, you're not working out. I just do it myself. And you'll shut people down, even those who may one day become a great right hand. And you have to be extremely patient with them. And finding that right balance, Ebony, I will tell you, I've been trying to figure it out for 16 years. I'm going to tell you I figured it out. We've reached a certain moniker level of success. I'm still figuring it out every day. I still train and educate myself how to be a better leader, Sister Thomas.
And also, depending on the manpower, if you have enough people, partnering a weak person with a strong person, or just allowing them the time to shadow you or someone else, that'll build them up as well.
I certainly believe in that, and I try to use myself also as an example. I try to make sure people see me in operation so they know what my expectations are. This is how, and again, some jokers will look right at you and still not step up. But you can't get frustrated by that. You just keep trying. And then ultimately, because it's so, I'm working on two types of people all the time. Training and motivating the current ones and recruiting new ones. And I'm working on both simultaneously. I'm not trying to get rid of the ones that ain't working out. I'm still trying to train and motivate them. But I'm always looking for fresh blood. I'm always looking for new people. Every time, and I try to teach my leaders. When y'all see somebody join the church, go grab them. Don't sit there and frustrated. Won't nobody show up for youth department meeting. Won't nobody show up for the kids. I've had 100 people join the church since the beginning of the year. Go find somebody. You know, I mean, and that's it. So so let's talk about. Go back into this having speed limits. Speed limits exist. If you think about speed limits, it gets for good reasons. That need to be respected and practiced consistently. So we must discover our own work speed limit. Everybody must set your speed limit. Anytime someone exceeds their speed limit on the job, they crash, they burn, and they not only hurt them, but they wreck and hurt other folk too. So speed limits, many times, sometimes most people think the speed limit, that's just to slow me down. No, a speed limit is designed to help you. We know that if you hit that curve at this speed, you're going to crash. So we say when you take that exit, it says 35. I got to slow down because it's for your protection. And everybody in here must learn speed limits. It's for our protection. If people don't adjust and have speed limits and boundaries, we'll burn out everybody in the church. We'll crash and burn. We'll cuss folk out. We'll do stupid stuff. Why? Because everybody's speeding. And it's not just hurting you, it's hurting the people around you. It's hurting people in your department. Because everybody's speeding. Yes, Shanae.
What do you do if you're in an environment and you know your speed limit? And you know your speed limits, but your environment is trying to make you go faster, and you are, and you know that you know your speed limit. You know that if you're going to go 60 and they try to push you to 65, 70, you get out or?
That's a good question. So what are you in an environment and they're trying to push you beyond what you're comfortable doing? Now, it's a good point. I dealt with someone a couple of years ago about this because their job had them working 60, 70 hours a week, bringing work home. They was married, had kids and all of that. And they felt like If they weren't working like that, then the boss was trying to say you're not stepping up because everybody else is doing it. So now let me be real clear. You're right. There are kid zones where you drive 35 miles an hour. There are zones where you drive 55, and there's places on the highway where you can drive 70, 75 miles an hour. Okay, now sometimes you go on that highway, there's 75 miles, there'll always be somebody that's driving 55. They just drive you crazy. And, and you want to blow the horn on them and all of that. And you know what they do? It's like saying, I'm driving 55. Y'all can speed on down through here if you want. Now, what is that? What am I saying? What I told the person is this. There are certain jobs that do require you to put that type of effort in. There's certain jobs that do require you. I mean, the guys who are your CEOs and all of that, them people work like that. They work 80, 90, 100 hours a week. They have no life, but they chose that. And you may, if you find yourself in a situation like that and you decide that's not the life you want to live, that's not the lifestyle, that's not the work balance that you want, and that's not what you want to do, then change. I mean, you may not be able to do it today, but you can work towards it. I mean, you can start number one first by letting the boss know that this is not the right balance for me. I have children. You know, all these little single teeny boppers running around here that don't care when they go home, that's fine. You know, but, you know, I have a husband I want to cook for in the evenings. I have children that I want to be there when they get out of school. So if this particular job requires this kind of effort, I just can't do it. And so I want to stay here. If there's a different assignment, you know, I will work diligent for the time that I can. And I will, you know, if it means that I don't get all the promotions and all the raises that the other people get, but this is not the lifestyle that I want to live. And just let people know that. And if that job requires that, then maybe you need to look for another job. But yeah, you do have to set speed limits, and you do have to know your own limitations. And I think we talked a little bit about how do you set your own personal limitations. How do you set your own limitations? Anytime someone exceeds their limitations on the job and then crashes, the wound ripples throughout the organization. And think about this. So I need everybody to think about this. Think about your life. Do you constantly take work home? Are you staying up late all the time after the kids have gone to bed? Are you skipping meals so that you can get caught up on paperwork? Have you become accustomed to driving, trying to do stuff, trying to do multiple things? You driving and texting, driving and reading messages before the meeting. Y'all not working with me. Drinking coffee, trying to stay awake. Not only is this insane, you're going to hurt yourself. While there are some seasons, now don't misunderstand me. Now, one of the things that I learned that there are seasons where you can be out of balance. But notice I said seasons. There are times where the job is going to require it. We do Fam Fest, but we don't do Fam Fest every week. But the week that we do Fam Fest, everybody in hustle mode. So I don't need nobody leaving at 4 o'clock talking about 4 o'clock time to go home. No, it's Fam Fest week. Everybody working overtime. Now, if I was doing a Fam Fest every week and we had to work like that, and you said, this is too much for me, then that's fine. But at the times when we're in a season, then there may be a season where you do have to work that extra, put that extra effort in, double up on your efforts. But it can't be a lifestyle. It has to be seasonal, require your extra attention. You are a human being, mortal and fragile and physical, mental and emotional, and you have these needs, and if they're not getting met on a consistent basis, you will burn out, you'll crash, you'll burn, and you're going to take some other people out with you. You're going to take others out with you. So let's talk about this. So how do you all discover your own personal speed limits? How do you discover your personal speed limits? Go ahead.
On my job, on my job, based on what I do, like, if I don't feel like I'm safe or I'm safely taking care of a person, then that to me is my speed limit.
Say that again.
Like, if I don't feel as though like I'm safely providing care to my patients, to me, that's my speed limit. No matter how the demand is, I don't care how the OR is trying to push people to it, if I feel like right now my load is like where it's at.
Okay.
They build out like numbers and stuff like that. To me, that's like my safety net. And I feel like,
Then they want you to handle three, but if you thought you needed to devote all your attention to this one patient, then that's what you're gonna do.
and I feel like that's why it's not fun, because I pushing people, like, it's a challenge. It's like you're standing up or like you're going against your higher ups, but that's how I establish my safety net or my speed limit with that.
And again, that may need to require a sit-down conversation. I mean, because you're right, everybody got their quotas, everybody got to hit their numbers, right? And so on and so forth. And so if they're saying, I'm sorry, get in there, throw the food on the table and book. You know, as long as they breathe and go to the next one. You know, I mean, I know that's how hospitals and medical profession has come. It's about numbers. Get them in, get them out. They still bleeding. Stitch it up. Send them on out the door. I mean, give them some medication. They'll be all right. And so it may require a heart-to-heart sit down, but that's a good point. You said, for me, my limitations is this. And that's a good point. And you can't do it in a rebellious state. You're going to have that conversation. And it could very well be, well, maybe, Shanae, we need you to do something else. Or we need you to go to Wake instead of Duke. I don't know, because they a little bit slower than Wake. They're not trying to rush them in and rush them out. I mean, but you follow what I'm saying? Or maybe you need to work in a different department because you want to provide more quality care or deal with different types of patients. I have no idea about your profession, but my point is that you have to establish some type of speed limit within yourself. Anybody else? How would you establish your own personal speed limit?
I know for me, when I start getting frustrated and irritable, I slow myself down because that's not my personality, that's not who I am. And so when things start constantly getting to me or I find myself snapping, I'll realize I'm either doing too much or have been going too long, and I'll pause it.
That really is, and both of you hit the nail on the head. It is knowing you. It is knowing yourself. If I'm driving, I can drive pretty fast, but if I go too fast, you start getting a little antsy. You start getting a little nervous, and you start getting worried. Now, maybe you can keep on going, but if you're not feeling comfortable, you need to back off. You need to slow down. And so a lot of times sometimes it's emotions. You find yourself snapping and going off a little bit more often than normal. Then that's you knowing yourself, and you just say, hold on, I'm going a little bit too fast, I'm doing a little bit too much, I'm dealing with too many people, I need to back off some of these folks because this is my body giving me signals that I'm going too fast, I'm doing too much. Emotional responses, there are people that don't have jobs today because, they lashed out at the boss. You can't lash out at the boss. I don't know what's going on in your life, but you're going too fast. You're going too fast. You can't, and then sometimes it's not last night the boss will get you fired, but even lashing out at your peers and your subordinates or your customers got to get you fired too, because you ain't getting the job done. So you need to watch your emotions, watch yourself. When your body is tired to a point of distractions, you need rest. Some of it really is that. Sometimes we just get irritable. and we just need rest. When your feelings when your feelings refuse to be ignored, then you need to express yourself in some appropriate way. Too often we ignore ourselves. We ignore our bodies. We ignore when it's time to slow down. We ignore our emotions screaming at us. We must not ignore our bodies. Our bodies need stuff. It needs rest. It needs emotional rest. It needs spiritual rest. It needs physical rest. A lot of people don't even eat properly. There are things that we're doing. We're moving too fast. Can't even eat right. Your body ain't digesting right because you're just going and going and going and going. Slow down. Slow down. Always tired. Always tired. Restless. Can't sleep good. Just take a break and slow down. Anybody else on setting your own personal speed limits? One thing that I would say, especially when you're emotionally bouncing around, that's a time that's something that's telling you, okay, you're moving a little bit too fast. You want to scream. I just hate being here. I don't want to be here. It really probably is that you're just moving too fast. You know, you dread coming to work. You can't take these folk no more. This is what I'm talking about. Because the truth of the matter is, you took the job. You took the job because you were qualified for the job. You took the job because you were qualified for the job because you could do the job. You wanted to do the job. You accepted the job. What has changed? Burnt out in confusion. That's the only thing that has changed. And as a result, guess what? You're not doing the job. You're focused on the confusion. You're focused on the people. You're focused on being burnt out. Your emotions are all over the place. And so what I hired you to do, what you took the job to do, is not getting done. And so if we stay in these hyperbolic states, in these high-speed states, in these confusing states, in these burnt-out states, our job is not getting done. The assignment is not getting done. And the consequences can be great. We have a daycare. If those daycare providers are not doing their job, a child can suffer. You know, a child could get missed. Child can have an accident because the teacher is burnt out. The teacher is frustrated over confusion. Something is going on and they're not getting what they need. And so they can't do what they're supposed to do. We want to get beyond that place where we're just coming because we have to be there. We're smiling, making ourselves smile. Things are falling apart, and we're just there. You don't want to do that. You want to be there. And so you got to get beyond the confusion and the frustration. So you got to learn how to tend to your emotional needs apart from your professional responsibilities. Everybody must learn how to separate your emotional needs from your job. Separate your emotional needs from your job. If I'm getting emotionally distraught on my job, now it does mean that I have emotional needs not being met, but I shouldn't be trying to get them met at the job. And what do I mean by that? I'm trying to get people to like me on the job. Well, that's you trying to get your emotional needs. I'm trying to get stuff to work out on the job. No, you there to work your job. You there to do your business. You know, the people may never like you. You don't need to get your emotional needs met on the job. You need to get them met, though. You follow what I'm saying? You got to make sure that you are whole emotionally when you go into that job. Because the people may never change on the job. But you got to have it together. You can't get burnt out. You can't be speeding. You can't be, because now you can't do your job. Yes?
Also, I've learned since I've been here that, like you said, when you're emotionally and you're tired, I've heard the teachers say, just walk away. Because if you find two children in a little fighting competition, you can't let your emotions get there. You tell them to walk away. So even as adults, we should walk away, ask our boss that we have a day off,
or maybe, we just come in and take half a day the next day. But that'll give you time to rest and get your mind together, for the situation, so you won't be hostile towards your children or your boss or your coworkers.
And that's a good point. And what you're saying there is now you're starting to learn what your speed limit is. Now you're learning your limitations. You're learning that, okay, you know what? It's time for me to back off. Time for me to take a break. Time for me to slow down. Time for me to go to. You're learning that, I'm a 55 person, and I've been going 65 for the last 3 days, and I need to back off. And I can tell because I'm anxious, I'm nervous, I'm looking at the speed limit, that thing saying, and you're learning yourself. And when you learn yourself, then you can adjust yourself accordingly. You know that you're going too fast. Yes.
I guess mine is more so a comment. I think with the speed limit and piggybacking on what Mother Mary said, sometimes I think that we just have to change our mindsets for our speed limits. Because a lot of times if our mindset is nothing's going to change or it's always going to be this way, whatever the case may be, then you come in no matter what the speed limit is or no matter what the environment is, you're still thinking that way. So taking that negativity into the workplace or just in your mindset as in general will cause a blockage in your speed limit.
That's a very good point. Because the truth of the matter is, now you may need to change jobs if you can't do it. But if your job is to drive trucks, now you need to know how to drive now. If that's your job. If your job is to drive trucks, you can't be out there talking about y'all moving too fast. Trust me, they need you to go and get it going now, get it done. Listen now. Speed limit is 65, we need you to go 65. Speed limit 75, we need you to go 75. And so going back to the thing now, and I don't know your profession, but you follow what I'm saying? If that's the profession that you've chosen. Now, some professions I can't choose because I can't take it. I don't know how Ebony's husband do what he do. I can't do it. I can't drive past 2-3 hours. I can't imagine just driving 20 hours. You in Georgia heading to California. I'm like, really? Where you at? I call Raymond sometime. He in Washington, not Washington D.C., Seattle, Washington. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Going down the West Coast. I'll see y'all this weekend. I'm like, please. I couldn't handle it. So I can't do that job. I literally can't. And so those that do it, if they're going to do it, they better they better change that psyche. They better figure out how to be able to drive at that speed limit, because you're right, and it goes back to what I said. If this is the job and you want the job, then you better get your mind together to be able to do the job. Otherwise, you need to go find another job. But if this is the job, you got to get your mind right. You got to get if you got to sleep an extra 8 hours before you come to work. I don't know. If you got to do whatever you need to do to get yourself together so that when you get on that job, you're focused on the job, then that's what you have to do. The last thing I want to talk about is a one-track mind. So now we're talking about speed limits, right? Now, don't you hate it when somebody, they just dive back and forth from lane to lane? Ain't that, like, really? Just pick a lane. They just in and out, in and out, in and out. One track mind. Once you discover your speed limit, you must make sure you remain on the same road, same lane. Don't bounce back and forth. You got to have, in a lot of respects, when it comes to your assignment, a one-track mind. You got to have a one-track mind. In order to achieve optimal results with minimal confusion, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to keep from being burnt out. We're trying to avoid confusion. We want to stay in the same, we want to develop and understand what our own personal limitations are, and then we want to stay on point or on task. We must remain focused on the job for which we were hired. It can be tempting to want to do others' jobs for them, to increase our load and responsibilities, or to diverge and perform other tasks for which we may be well suited. Yet when we take these detours, we often increase confusion. When you're darting in and out of traffic, you're causing other people to hit their brakes, and they don't know what you're going to do next. And so it's not only creating a problem for you, it makes you antsy, it also makes them. And so I just learned how to just take a deep breath. Like we both gonna get there. And I've learned how to do that. We were hired for one job. And when we start doing other tasks and taking on different roles, we lose our ability to get that job done. One assignment, do that well. One responsibility. Jesus never lost sight of the reason that his Father sent him to live among us. And I find it interesting, neither did David at the time when he was hired by Saul. He was hired by Saul. We see that he excelled in his ability to play the harp. That was his number one job. Saul get them evil spirits. David had to go in there and play that harp. Calm them spirits down. He never lost sight of that. He knew that that was his job, that was his responsibilities. Let me read some of this here. Part of David's job assignment. And Saul's servant said unto him, Behold now, an evil spirit from God troubleth thee. Let our Lord now command thy servants, which are before thee, to seek out a man who is cunning player on a harp. And it shall come to pass, when the evil spirit from God is upon thee, that he shall play with his hand, and thou shalt be well. And Saul said unto his servants, Provide me now a man that can play well, and bring him to me. Then answered one of the servants, and said, Behold, I have seen the son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, that is, cunning in playing, and a mighty valiant man, a man of war, and prudent in matters, and comely person. And the Lord is with him. Wherefore Saul sent messengers unto Jesse, and said, Send me David thy son, which is with the sheep. The job description goes out. David has what is needed. He's cunning in playing and knows that that's what is required of him. Now, did he have drama? Yeah. Did he have issues? Did he have hostility? I mean, you working and somebody throwing a spear at you. Y'all complaining because somebody talking about you. Y'all ain't working with me. So, I mean, you like, what's that, a spear? And keep on playing. Y'all ain't working with me. Because that was his job assignment. He complained and fussed and fight about it. That's what his job was. You got hired for a job. Those people hired you for this. Now, yeah, they throwing spears at you. You got this. You got all this stuff going on. You can't afford to burn out. You got to try to reduce that confusion. You got to do your job. Stay in your, do what you're required to do. Do what you're called to do. The strengths and attributes that similarly, the strengths and attributes that get you hired should be the ones that you exercise most in your current position. Although, like David, you may possess numerous other talents and abilities, you must trust that God will use those at a later time. Stick with your present mission and make it your consistent focus, especially when you are tempted to take on more. Let me talk about that a little bit, because many times we want to do more. Many times there's a calling for us to do more. We want the promotions. We want to get ahead. We want to do all of these things. But a lot of times in that drive to want to get ahead, we can lose focus on the assignment at hand. We want to be this and we can do this, but here's what I hired you for right here. And I want you to do that very well. I mean, sometimes, and it can be very frustrating, especially when you know you can do more. especially when you know you have more to give. But you can't allow that to frustrate you. Stay on point. Stay on that assignment that you're given. Get that done and do it well. Do that job, that assignment. No matter what's going to happen in the future, right now, this is the assignment. This is the work. I'm going to keep my eye focused on this. I'm going to keep my mind focused on this. I'm going to do this job well. Whatever is going to happen in the future is going to happen whenever it's going to happen. And I've learned how to develop a peace about that. And it's frustrating, especially when the people that's doing the other job don't know what they're doing. And you know you can do it better. But you know what? They didn't hire you for that job. When you know you can do your job, do somebody else's job better, do your boss's job better, when you know that, it can be very frustrating. But that's not what you were hired to do. This is your job. This is your assignment. Do that and do that well. Keep that one-track mind. I think I got a few more minutes. Maybe I'll just open up for discussions. I guess the last point is kind of what we've already talked about, which is learning how to delegate. We talked a little bit about that. And this point just simply says, let go and let others. Just let it go. Let other people do it. Let them do their assignment. Let them do their job. Don't try to do everything, even if you're good at it and can do it. Just let go. Stay in your lane. Stay in your particular assignment and let others get their job done. So let's kind of, I know we have some viewers. If you all have any questions, we'd love for you to send any comments or questions to us. But class, let's kind of open up for a discussion here. I know we've talked a little bit, but I got about 8 or 9 minutes left here. So what struck you today? What feedback or comments that you all have for me?
Learn to rest.
Yes.
Learn to rest when you feel yourself getting tired.
Learning yourself, and especially learning when it's time to rest. Here's one thing to everyone that feel like it can't get done if you're not there, that you just have to be there and it ain't gonna get done if you're not there. I figured out something. We can prove if that's true or not. Die.
That's
I figured out something about life. When you die, they cry over your grave now, but they're gonna keep on going. Even the people that think they can't make it without you, they'll act like they want to get in that casket. But they're not going to. Even if they crawl up in it, as soon as that man starts closing, they say, hold on, Reverend. Hold on, what you doing? What you doing, man? What you doing? So, always remember, even when you think it can't get done without you, it actually can. People will figure it out. Even the people that are the most dependent upon you, and they act like they're going to die unless you do this. Because a lot of times I deal in the church, I deal with what I call tweeners. And these are the people that got the kids pulling on them and the parents. And then they may even have siblings. And so they working themselves to death, trying to take care of the kids, take care of their parents, take care of their brothers and sisters. Money going and the energy is going, everything is going. And I said, and I sometimes I just stop them. I said, look, the only people you're responsible for are the people came out of you or that you're married to. I said, and if you let all these other folks kill you, who's going to take care of them? Who's going to take care of them babies when you laid up in a hospital with tubes coming out your nose? Okay. Now, them other folks, if you die, just disappear. Like, I mean, just cut the phone off and go away for about a week. I guarantee you they won't be on the street corner begging. They'll figure it out.
Yes, they will.
If they figure out how to call social services, well, they will. Them jokers gonna figure it out. Die. They will figure it out. I know we think they can't make it, but they can't make it. They will make it. They will figure it out. So rest is so important. You just gotta turn it off and just don't answer. Times, guys, I'm serious. I just don't answer the phone. I thank God for caller ID. But I just don't answer. I just don't. I don't answer it because I know a body needs rest. And if there's anything in addition to confusion that'll burn you out, it is the lack of rest. It's the lack of rest. Because see, I can deal with a lot of hell when I'm rested. I can put up with a lot of y'all, when I ain't had a good meal, got my strength back. But when I'm when I'm tired and irritable, I can't take a whole lot. And so the rest is very important. Who handed us seal here?
I was saying, going back to what Ebony was talking about, learning to delegate. I used to have a problem delegating because I felt like people just wasn't doing it right. But what I found out was they just don't do it the way I do it. And so learning to accept people's differences and getting it done, that's one thing that'll hold you back from delegating.
That, and I don't know if that's a personality quirk or a personality issue. Like, I know that could be a big problem with people who are perfectionists and that type of thing. But you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to learn. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be the best that you can give it, and that is it. And you're right, Wanda. I've learned that to be the case. Just because they ain't doing it your way don't mean that it ain't getting done. That's a very good point. Anybody else? What other comments? We have a few more minutes left. I want to hear from you all. Any of these discussions?
Mine was being focused. I was talking to my husband this morning, and I said, my mind is everywhere. I'm having issues focusing, and normally I can refocus myself. You know, like you said, rest and refocus.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm waking up at 4 o'clock. Like, are you kidding me? So even this morning, I got up at 4, and I'm like, okay, I gotta go back to sleep. Then I woke up for prayer, and I'm like, okay, I said everything, because I'm doing some transitions in my life, and I pretty much can usually handle it, certain things. But it seems like everything is happening this year. Everything is happening within the next 3 or 4 months, and it's like, oh my gosh, it feels like I'm just everywhere. Like, okay, if I get this done, and like he said, prioritize and what's important, do the important stuff first.
Mm-hmm.
But why do you think everything's important? I'm like, this is important. I gotta get it done. But I'm glad he was here, because when he said that, I'm like, you know what? There's some things that aren't that important. They can wait until they become important. So thank you for that.
And people who do think that we do think that everything is important, but everything isn't. Everything really isn't important. And whatever mechanism we need to use to start trying to figure out how to prioritize, that's what we have to do. We may think it's very important, but we got to figure out how to prioritize. But thank you for bringing that up, because your mind will be racing on all these millions of things, and you just got to figure out which one you're going to focus on, and then put the energy and time into that. Yes?
That's what I was just going to say. And being on the other side of the delegation, like being what's the word? Delegatee?
Yeah.
Delegatee, okay.
Allowing the, because even when you step into deeper territory with ministry work and different things at the church, dealing with, different leaders and things like that, not letting their desire for excellence in their delegation interfere with me wanting to come on board and do excellent work as well. I look at it as inspiration. And like I told one person I'm working with, I realized, and I said, there's more than one way to get to North Carolina, depending on where you're coming from. And as long as we all trying to get to that same destination, which is to give God glory, when it comes to delegating, don't stress yourself out about how it gets done, because we are all different. And if we get, I believe like when a person is delegating, if they're the visionary, they have this set way that they want it done. Like you said, we all are striving to get that, the thing that is family done. I'm not that person, so, I'm taking what you're giving me and I'm trying to perform it, at least I'm trying to perform it excellent. So don't let that, that not doing it exactly the way you need to be getting away, and me not letting their wanting it done like that and not knowing maybe how to it's not that they don't trust the person, but bringing it to pass that way, getting away of me wanting to continue to help. Because it can be kind of discouraging
Yeah, it reminds me, and when I hear you, and maybe this is what you're talking about. If not, then correct me. What I'm hearing is that, okay, pastor wants me to do something, but you're concerned that, well, what if I don't meet his standards of the way he wants it done?
Or doing it like exactly, like I'm not you. So, and as to
Right.
use you as an example, but if my heart's desire is to still get the goal done, I mean, like, because you were using an example of how people delegate, and I was piggybacking on the wonder how, you know, if it's not done exactly in that way that person would do it, sometimes the delegator can come off to the delegatee in a way that can be offensive. But for me, I'm trying to keep my eye on the prize and not let the delegator
Offend you.
offend me because
Yes.
they're striving for excellence, and I'm striving for excellence too, but just letting, letting that person know, like, there's more than one way to get the job done. And just because I might not do exactly the way you do it, let's not let that create a problem. Let us, work together.
Well, and that's where my message on Sundays is going to help, because you may not change them.
But I'm trying not to let that offend me and push me back.
Exactly. You may just have to withstand them. You may have to just, we that are strong bear the infirmities of the weak. You may have to just put up with them, because, a lot of times in our quest to get rid of confusion in our minds, we're trying to get rid of the people that are causing the confusion or the situations, and that may never change. And see, that's not the goal in life. Should not be to try to change the people that are creating the confusion. And notice we never talked about that here. And you shouldn't even think that way. Yeah, you're right. If the delegator don't know how to delegate properly, it can create problems for those that are trying to take on the delegation. But you may not be able to change them. Only thing you can do is increase your capacity to deal with them and learn how to handle them. Belton.
Yeah, that comment on what you were saying is like a term I came across called managing up. You're actually kind of Jedi mind tricking your manager, whoever gives you delegation. Some people more prescriptive with their instruction. Some people like get that point Z. I don't know how you get there. So the reason why that person might be more OCD on you might be because they had to deal with a not so excellent person before you. So they had to give A, B, C, D all the way through. But you would say, okay, take that with a grain of salt graciously and say, okay, I take everything in. I'm down here like this, nothing, I'm still going to do it my way, and you're going to find my way might be better. So then you kind of manage them up like, oh, they do have a brain ahead, so they don't leave me alone at the third time you're doing that. Or you just be a soldier and just do it like that, and they never get just the way to manage you. So everyone has their own management style.
Absolutely, very good point. Thank you all. The one thing I was going to share my own personal experience, and that was, if y'all have a seed you'd like to sow, would like to receive that at this time. Those that are watching by streaming, we'd love for you to sow if you'd like to. If you're being blessed, go online, victoriouspraises.org, and you can sow there. I certainly would greatly appreciate it, especially that person that got $1 million, because we could use it right now. I'm trying to build a church, so go ahead on. And I think my credit card processing can process $1 million. Just put them extra zeros in there. But I was thinking about this, I think it was 2 weekends ago, we started the St. Thomas Christian University Leadership Development Training. And you know what? In years, it was the first time that we did leadership training and I wasn't doing the teaching. I could sit back and just take it in. And you know what? I wasn't for sure how Jermaine was going to handle it. I wasn't for sure how Wendell was going to handle it. But you know what? I delegated it and it felt so good.
Yeah.
I didn't have to prepare and do all the work and do all the teaching. I could just sit there and listen. And that's what delegation does for you. And so I got other things that I need to do. So I need to learn how to now start delegating work, delegating assignments. And so let them do the preparation. let them do the classwork. Yes.
That's one thing, one more thing. Do you feel like the stronger that bond is of trust to make the transition to the delegation a little easier? Because sometimes like people can show up for the, I believe that if God calls you to something like you were saying earlier, I don't know if there's scripture to support this, but He will give you people to bring forth that vision for Him. You know, I mean, because when you pose that question about, when somebody poses a question like, what do you do about the delegation and knowing how to prioritize it? But I just feel like if God gives you a big, big vision that you can't do by yourself, He's not going to set you up to have to do all that by yourself. He's going to send people.
Yeah.
But with all that being said, you feel like having a strong relationship helps delegate and be a little easier?
It certainly helps, but trust is earned. And so trust is built over time. And so you got to start somewhere. And that's where faith is. Because I got to have faith. But then after a while, we begin to build trust in each other. And so we can't wait until there's complete trust because we'll never get started. And so we've got to earn that trust and build that trust. And over time, you begin to trust people more and more. So it makes it easier over time. But yeah. Thank you all. I appreciate your time. And those that have been watching, thank you guys. I'm looking at the computer. I should be looking at my camera. But thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully you've been blessed. Everybody, God first. You are dismissed.
Okay.
About calling people. I didn't know that meeting was for tonight, but you had just started the luncheon, so I didn't know.
Remind them to pay their reports.
A workers meeting. And the other guy that left it, he's gonna be traveling here this weekend and he wants to talk to you or see you while he's here. The other pastor, I left the information on you guys.
All right.
Yeah, you're fine. You're like,